I'm just going to share this screen for you. I've just hit record because that way we've got it so we can keep it for posterity, just in case you ask me a tricky question and I say something smart. Hang on, here we go.
Nah, I won't ask you tricky questions.
A good question.
All you downloaded all my reviews.
No. So what I've done, the first thing that we do, so basically, just so you understand, when we do an online and social media review, the first thing that I do is just put in the business name, right? Because effectively it's all integrated.
Yeah.
So there's only two ways you can get people to come to you generally, right? Either they find you, which is generally a Google often, or you find them, right? So social media is more likely that you'll find them, whereas Google is more likely they'll find you, right? So the first thing we put in there, and what's interesting for you is what do you reckon comes up as your number one thing when we put in Buckley's order? The first, yeah. So in terms of the list, is actually your Facebook page, which is pretty incredible. That's your most searchable entity, just so you know, is your Facebook page. The other good thing is for you is that you've actually got this, and as you said, it's incredible in terms of you're really unique. Is that you have these, you've hit over 100 reviews on Google, right? Many, and this would have been probably the Google. I imagine Google set this up. Did you have to? You would have had to own it, but did Google establish this in the first place? Do you remember this Google map? This Google map. Do you have access to your Google map? Do you know your Google map?
I don't look after that. The ladies in the girls in the office do that.
Okay, right. So your this Google map, less than 50% of people, except if they have bricks and mortar, because often you'll see, do you own this business? So see, it's here. It's asking me, do I own this business? So often when I'm kind of working with people, we claim it, right? We make sure that you claim it, and then you can kind of respond to those reviews and that sort of thing. And maybe that's what the girls are doing. But it's important that you own your own profiles, right? And that Google just doesn't have it hanging out there. But as I said, many businesses don't have this, particularly professional services that don't have a bricks and mortar address. But you can have them, right? So that's and you should have them. So it's good that you've got that. You should add shitloads of imagery because it really helps you on search, right? So into this platform, see how it's got C photos. The good thing, and you can put your logos and all that sort of stuff in there as well. But the main thing is, what we'd suggest is you're pretty old school, right? So you've created it's interesting, someone or somewhere along the lines, you've created your Facebook page. The good thing about that, you can see that Facebook's taken over from old directory sites. So back in the day, whenever you first started out, directory sites would have been the main things, right? So that's where you mainly come on. And there's probably a lot of them are all just free directory sites that probably somebody else whacked you on, right? But effectively, the only social media at the moment. But do you have a website?
Yeah, that's been getting sorted out.
Yeah,
we had one through the VACC, but I wasn't happy with it, and somebody's revamping it.
Okay.
Before Hillary came on board.
Yes. So the reality is, what you do, you never expect a social media to come up unless it's a business that doesn't have a website, right? So if just purely from a search, it would suggest you don't have a website, but you can click on this map and it'll take you to that website probably, but it doesn't come up in search, just so you know, for your name. As I said, you've got that map. It's worth you.
Hard work, Steve.
Huh? It's worth you knowing how to access this.
Those reviews, they're all organic. Not one of them's been paid for.
Yeah, it's awesome. So really,
sorry, mate. Sorry, just turn this down.
You're all right. Do you send this link to people so they can review it? So is it the girls in the office are sending this link so they know where to review? So you basically can share your link.
Sorry, say that again.
So you said how it's hard. It's been hard work. How do you get them?
Oh no, it's been hard work, right? Because we've upgraded and changed a lot of things, and I've got a set of rules and procedures the boys got to follow.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to follow, and the way we deal with our clients across the board, which I'm the main person for that, on how to deal with them. And that's why we've got to where we were by trying to supply that customer relation And like you said, it's our relationship that we've built with our clients over the years and trust.
Yeah, but just practically, how do you get the review? So how do they know where to go and review you? Do you just ask them for that, but do you send them the link?
No, they just put it on Google.
Yeah, so there's a link basically that you can send to them, right? So anybody that comes, you can send them this link that's to your Google so that you can ask them for that review, right? So that you probably
We
could
don't
even,
even send it to them.
yeah, so
That's the
you,
thing. They just do it. They've been doing it off their bat.
yeah, yeah. But do you reckon many blokes over 45 know how to do that?
Oh, there'll be a few,
Not many.
I think.
Do you know how to do it?
Yeah. No, I'll be the first one to admit that.
Exactly. So the reality
I'll
is,
probably work it
I'll
out.
send
It'll
it to
take
you
me a
here
long
now, and you
time.
can
Yeah.
copy it. I think I took a copy of it, right? I'm going to put it in the chat. In fact, I'll send it to you later. But there's a link that the office girls could be sending anybody that's come and had, so they can actually, how did we do? Here's the link to our Google site. I mean, often people do Google and Facebook, so you could basically, here's the link to our Google, here's the link to our
So,
Facebook.
just winding back a little bit.
Yeah,
So you're saying our Google Maps for our business, that's unique.
correct. So, so for instance, on my website, right? So these links, so you can put them all on the top of your website. See the Google
Yeah.
one. If I click on Google, it takes me to where people can leave a review. Basically, well, firstly, it shows where I am, right? But also, it's here, and it probably knows I'm the business, right? See, I can, but realistically, I can also write a review, right? See here, it's got write a review, right? So I can write a review.
Yeah. Okay.
um, that's the first thing. But to get the link, see how it's got here? It's got share. If I hit share,
Yeah.
that's my link. That's what I can send to anybody if I want them. If I want to ask them for a review, and it will send them this site, and then they can give me a review, right?
Okay.
So that's what you. So that's what I'm sort of saying to Hillary is that on all websites, and I'll get to that in a second, actually. But yeah, all websites really should include that link, so it makes it easy for people to be able to review, right? So it's
Yeah.
astounding, to be honest, Goran, that you're able to have so many reviews when you think about how few people would know necessarily how to do that. You know what I mean? You actually have to go out of your way. So that means you've got really dedicated people. That's what I would think, unless they're finding it some other way, right? So I have a feeling
Well,
this is what's linked
our
as the,
return clients are.
yeah. I have a feeling this is what's linked as the website. I think it comes up as yellow, potentially, but I did see there was
I don't know about that.
one other review sitting there. When you do a search on LinkedIn, clearly at the moment um, there's no LinkedIn business, but I don't know that you're on there either. And so just as a business on a, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Steve. Yeah.
Do you need to speak
Eddie,
to him?
what's up? Sorry, mate. I'm just in a meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll come back another day.
Yeah. What's up?
Oh,
Yes.
regarding about the transmission service
Yeah.
and all that, and the door handle.
When do you bring it in on Monday?
Hey,
When do you bring it in?
Monday morning if you want.
Yeah. Is that the day you booked in?
No. You said you were going to text me a price and all that.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
So
Eddie.
you
Let me write this down.
forgot.
Yeah, I did. I got sidetracked because coming down with the flu. Leave it with me. I'll chase it up and I'll give you a call.
Yeah. So the inside driver's door handle.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And the transmission hoses are finished as well.
Okay.
They're leaking too.
What colour? What colour is the inner chrome?
The who?
Inner door handle chrome?
Chrome, yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.
All right, man.
All right. Speak to you soon. Sorry about that.
You're right.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Steve. All right. Cheers. Sorry, Steve.
No, good.
Go ahead.
Are you familiar? Have you ever heard of LinkedIn? Are you familiar with LinkedIn?
Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm familiar with the word.
Yeah. So no, only,
Steve.
well, that's not. I believe me. I don't say that. I mean, there's one thing to hear it. It's that element of LinkedIn. Effectively, most trades don't necessarily have LinkedIn, but I think for trades and particularly owners of businesses, it's that element of you're a business owner on the one hand, which kind of makes you professional, and then the second hand, you're also you're able to go on the tools sort of thing. But many trades aren't or haven't kind of gone on here as business owners. But the reality is, whether
Yeah.
you're on it or not, it doesn't mean you're not necessarily being talked about. So when I did the search on LinkedIn, clearly what comes up is Buckley's Autos from when BNI Elevate's been promoting it, right? So when I was doing it, we actually talk about it there, but neither Goran or the
Yeah.
business is actually on LinkedIn. So that's something we do for people. We create the LinkedIn. We make sure you're all star. So in other words, you've got a live. That's where your professional one should be. It's separate, so rather than on Facebook, which is really more social, and you can put a bit of business stuff on there, but it should be more. It's more social, whereas LinkedIn is really your professional.
Steve,
Yeah,
being on Facebook has picked up a lot of work.
yeah,
Like our client base is, you can say, as far as Hoppers Crossing to Frankston.
yeah. So, um,
Yeah.
anyway, so that LinkedIn is just particularly from and particularly to get your sort of higher end clients potentially, and their algorithm is a lot better. All of these things, just so you know, are all around. The newspaper. Well, social media all
Yeah.
has the news feed, right? So it's about getting into as many news feeds as you can for people that are going
Yeah.
to want to know about you. So same as Facebook, but on LinkedIn now, they're a lot more generous than what Facebook is in terms of letting people see things. On Facebook,
Yeah.
the only time they're generous is as soon as you spend $1. So once you spend $1, they're generous. If you don't spend $1, it's just a landing page, right? Which has some
Yeah.
advantages, but still not ideal. This just in terms, I don't know when I did this audit, but clearly, you're not got a bad following, couple of hundred, and it's not really, and a lot of those would be probably BNI ones, but again, it's about sort of having a strategy for every day or every second day posting to sort of tell people, even sharing those reviews, sharing, why you, sharing the type of work that you do, all that sort of stuff. Often we take that from a website, right? And then we put it onto the feeds, because if you combine a habit of posting then with some advertising, and most of our clients spend about $5 a day on advertising, right? So we're not talking a lot. With a business like you, $5 a day probably means um, somewhere between sort of 15,000. So let's say 15,000 eyeballs on your messaging, and potentially, a few hundred people going across the website to see what you do and whether they book it in and that sort of thing, right? So we try and move traffic across to you, if that makes sense, right? But the idea in the first
Yeah.
place is just to make sure people are aware that you exist and we find who you're looking for. You were saying, they come with.
How do you monitor? Do you have a way to monitor the traffic?
Yeah, of course. So we report on that every month. So basically, we put a thing, and I'll show you that in a second. There's a bit of pixel code that goes on the back of the website that basically tells us how many people
Yeah.
are viewing things, but also tells us how many people are going to the website side of things. Um, the reality is, at the moment, the other thing to sort of say, one thing that you do, although it doesn't quite fit, but at least you've got the cover image. A lot of people get confused, right? So this cover image at least is kind of a real image. I don't think it's showing you off as well as it could be, because I think this picture probably has, you probably would want to resize it so you can actually see cars in there and that sort of stuff, right? But and your logo just about fits in that little box. But at least that's the consistency you'd want to have across everything. There's no Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram, and again, it's just another platform you can own to make you more searchable. It's all visual. So if you've got cars in there and that sort of stuff, and guys working on cars, it's a good platform for it. And if you're advertising, again, 10 million Australians on it. So it means a lot of, particularly the female target audience, are more likely to be on it, and you can put calls to action on your posting. It was interesting. Buckley's Repair. There is actually a, a profile named that. I don't know if you guys ever did that. I have a feeling there might be a big Buckley's in the States. And I think I saw that
Yeah, there
elsewhere.
is.
Yeah. But so
Yeah, there's one
Buckley's,
in the States.
so Twitter again is is not the fact that you're going to go crazy and knock yourself out becoming, from a Twitter marketing perspective. It's just another thing that potentially a Twitter profile would bump up above all those directories. So it's just another thing that helps place you and makes you searchable, right? And that you can be posting to. And you may as well own it. You have your cover image and your logo in there. And as
Yeah.
I've said with YouTube, and this is where I realized there's a big one elsewhere. So Buckley's Auto you might go Buckley's Auto Yarraville, for instance, is that so that basically to differentiate yourself from others. But the advantage of YouTube, it is actually a very good landing page because it is a Google product. So again, from our perspective, we create the YouTubes just so you can put websites and all your other links and everything in here, as well as, let's face it, it's not that much harder to create a video as it is to take a photo nowadays. So you can upload video and that sort of stuff in there on certain things. So anyway, they're the channels basically that we look at, right? So we want you to be searchable. We looked at, websites. The thing with your website, because I can't sort of talk to a website and without knowing what your website looks like, I'll just show you on this other little page here, right, which was the bottom of what I sent you. So and again, it's something to talk to. I don't know if have you had any chats with Hillary yet, or not yet?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Because I've been busy with all that other shit.
Yeah, with what you're doing.
All my plans that I had, like we were doing CRMs, and we're going to get all that sorted, and that's all on the back burner at the moment.
So realistically, a good website should be sort of set up, logo up the top, and why you? You've kind of got your just do it. Everybody loves Goran. A cover image that would be basically probably an image of the workshop with, a hive of activity or whatever that would be consistent, not just on the website, but across all the social channels. This is that bit of pixel code that I talked to you about. You load up how you can contact us by phone or email or all your socials, and including that Google link. And you have some sort of call to action, which is, book a service today. And you can have your social media plugins, right? And your key sort of, why us, testimonials, the types of servicing and cars that you might do, right? So that's how we recommend a good website looks, because that's how we've been sort of taught to look at websites, right? You want it to be immediately visible. That's what a website should look and feel like. And that's what I was sort of saying to you about, say, DC Building. They've got a pretty professional looking website, but they just don't have any social media at the moment, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it pretty straightforward for me to use a repositioning where we're basically taking content from the website, which includes imagery, and we're sending it to Google. We're sending it to these other 4 social medias, right? And we're posting for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, I often get people sort of come, who's one at the moment? Oh, Graham. Graham's a good example at the moment, right? All I can do with Graham at the moment is set up his, I can set up the channels at the same time as Hillary is updating and revising his website. I'm sort of saying him, until that's happened, I can't really use my strategy because your website's terrible. We don't want to take people to the current website that he's got because they'd just go elsewhere. It looks like a PDF, and it's it's just no good. So, but once Hillary helps him with that, once I've done his setup, then he's good to go, right? And he'll be competing with all the big boys in a way in terms of his look and feel and that sort of stuff. And he works with some massive companies, right? So he's and he's had a lot of big business in the past. I don't know if you've done a 1-to-1 with him, but mate, he's had some pretty big contracts before.
No, I haven't done it with him, but he's on my hit list.
Even now, I mean, mate, he's wanting to grow his business to sort of pre-COVID, but his pre-COVID numbers were phenomenal, right, in terms of what he was doing. So, ultimately, just so you know, social media, this is what I was trying to explain, sits up the top here with other communications, and that's B&I's up here as well, right? And then when we talk promotion, that's kind of just the difference between networking, posting, as against paid stuff. And people often get confused when they think Facebook advertising or Google advertising, that's more promotion, not communications, right? The main thing is, and you were asking me before, who do we work with? Well, if the business is no good, well, it's no good working with me, because all I'll do is probably help businesses often fail faster, because realistically, if you don't have a good strategy, you don't know who your customer is, you don't have a good offer, and you're not unique, which is all the things that people sprout about Goran Mijatovic in the meetings, you've got that, right? So you've got a lot of sort of runs on the board. You know who your customers are and that sort of stuff. And you might have heard the term content marketing. It's just the words you use and the images. That's all it is, right? So you use good imagery, and the wording is You want to have your car serviced by the experts so that's the stuff that you want to sort of put out there. I've mentioned the fact that the other thing that often people get confused is their personal social media, which I don't really do. I don't do anybody's personal social media. All I do is make sure that they are all star on LinkedIn. Sometimes for blokes, their LinkedIn and their Facebook look a bit the same. So if blokes aren't using Facebook for anything other than or predominantly for their business, then I'll create a very similar sort of platform and profile for them, right? Because essentially it then makes them look professional, and they could still be sort of saying they went and had beers with mates on a Friday night, but it's their personal stuff on the Facebook, and it's just
Yeah,
got a bit of a combination. What we are about is making sure that these business profiles are up. Just so you know, this thing here, just we know that less than 50% of businesses have any social media, and generally of those ones, they'll have a Facebook page, which is kind of your case, right? So you're the obvious one where you've got a Facebook page, but not the others. But then of those, have you ever done any advertising with Facebook? Boosted any
no,
posts or anything?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
That's all new to us at the moment.
Yeah. So Facebook, as I said to you, the good thing about Facebook, particularly since COVID, is that it's almost the value you get for your dollar is almost back to 2012, right? So if you spend a dollar, the amount of reach you can get and links and that sort of stuff is pretty phenomenal. $5 a day for most businesses is negligible. But if you're not spending a dollar, then the likelihood of people sort of seeing your posts is minimal. You've got a couple of hundred people that follow your page. At best, 20 people might see your post in a month at the
Yeah,
moment. Just so you know, you
I'm not
probably,
just means anything to you, but
yeah,
at Christmas time, around Christmas or after Christmas, we had like 1,100,
1,100 people saw a post.
1,100 hits. Everyone went in there, and out of that month, our sales went through the roof.
Yeah, I don't. I wonder whether somebody shared, because there are hacks you can use, right? That still keep working. The hack you can use, because organic, what do they call that? In terms of where things go viral. And in some ways, if you had a post or views, like a
Yeah,
thousand, as you said, 1,000 is a lot, but not really. It's a lot for organic, right? If
yeah,
you if you're not spending any money.
yeah,
When businesses get high organic, because there is certain things you can do to make that happen, right? You could share your post to groups, for instance, and if you share your post to groups, all of a sudden that can happen, right? So, but you can only do so much of that without people thinking
yeah,
lesser of you. Um, and in the scheme of things, 1,000 people isn't much when you spend a dollar, just so you know. So, as I said to you, for me, that's less than a couple of days when so it probably cost me maybe $10 for somebody to get that sort of reach and traffic potentially, depending
yeah,
on what it looks like and the offer, that sort of stuff. Anyway, and ultimately the reason with this little parts here, just I like to do it in a picture. Like anything, you want to measure your return on investment. So that as much as anything, you can tell people what we do, right? This consult is complimentary, and I think I'm going to keep it complimentary for people that then proceed with us beyond
yeah,
this part. And then we do a 3 + 2 hour. We do a setup session, and then we do a planning session. So it's a 5 hour session. Um, one's 600 and something, the other one's 400. So it works out to about $1,000, right, to actually do a setup and planning session. Then we just basically get on and manage. And so I'll show you those sort of levels. So in other words, we're posting and we're managing the advertising. Um, so there's only really three things we do, right? Setup, planning, that's a once off, and then we manage. And then you got to budget ad campaigns. So if people want to spend $5 a day, say you're budgeting what it costs you then ongoing to then make it. So we manage from as little as $175 a month. If people are then spending $150 a month on advertising, let's say, then you might be spending somewhere around the $300 mark. Then clearly you'd hope that you get more than $300 back on your return in investment, right?
yeah, Steve, with the 175 a month, what return? What's on that? What?
Yeah, as I said, that's just a two post. That's a two post. I'll show you that. I'll talk through that in a sec. Yeah, right. So if that's okay. So yeah. Um, so, and again, because Graham and yourself and myself probably similar, he's had people ring him up, and it sounds like you had people. So, well, you talked about the fellow quoting you, right? Often people will just quote you and say, "This is how many leads I'm going to get you." Right? Leads don't mean bloody much to most people in terms of then understanding what the hell you're going to do for me, right? So it's first thing just to be aware of what you're actually trying to achieve, right? So there's the objectives. You're trying to protect your equity online. So you understand that brand equity now has become, so in other words, your business, those things that you have online are now of value. I often get people, particularly the 50 somethings, coming to me saying, I want to sell my business. Businesses become more valuable if they have this stuff in order, and particularly if they've been using them, right? So that's the first thing. Even if we do no marketing through them, having the channels add value to your business immediately, right? We've already seen from a search that your Facebook page is actually your most searchable thing at the moment, because you don't have that website, right? So that's the first thing. Protect your brand online. Differentiate you from your competitors, because as I said, less than 50% of businesses have any of this stuff, right? And then of them, less than 15% have ever advertised. So if you're not advertising, but you've got a Facebook page, it still doesn't mean much, right? So, and then the ultimate thing is a bit like B&I, right? You want to be top of mind to the people that know of you. So that's why we do the day-to-day posts. But then you want to increase business. So in other words, new leads, by way of the advertising, right? So, yeah. So, and I was sort of saying to you before, and maybe I've got not as good at selling it within B&I chapters, but I honestly believe social media is the most natural add-on to business networking that there is. It's the most obvious and easiest add-on to business networking, if you like, because you can spread the
My
tentacles.
theory is on that, Steve, a bit of everything to get out there. It all adds up.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, today's waived, as I said, basically, usually because we get so many inquiries, but they're just basically wanting to get this sort of thing. In the past, particularly, I'd do it and then I'd spend my whole time chasing people up. So if Tom hadn't been referred by you, and let's say Tom rang me, Tom would get this and that'd be great, but he wouldn't necessarily know how to read it. So I need to make time. So it's much better that you refer somebody like Tom, because otherwise it's very hard to sort of go through. I get a lot of tire kickers, is probably the best way to put it. So which is why we put a price on it. And the reality is it's 2 hours of my time that I never get back, right? So, but with
we're all in that boat, mate.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm happy to do it for my B&I members at the moment. But yeah, then basically, as I mentioned, the 3 steps effectively. So we do that setup, which is the 6 social media sites, which is a $610 session, 3 hours. We do a planning session, which is really where we're setting up particularly Facebook ads, but we're also working out what are we going to post, when are we going to post it. And I don't think you're ready to do that at the moment either. To be quite honest, until you get your website sorted, you're a bit like Graham.
Yeah.
I think you're ready. You could easily get your social media pages sorted at any time you're able to go. And then you're asking me, but at the moment, until you kind of, until you got this part, I don't know about the benefit of doing a planning session. But I do think there's probably advantages, given what you said around Facebook advertising, is whether you'd at least, anyway, you might want to, from a management, these are the levels we have, right? So we have an extra small, which is really for that very price conscious, where we want them to advertise, not just have posting. Because if you're just posting, as I said, it's good, but it's not until you spend $1 that it actually is really good, right? But realistically, in B&I, and particularly, I was going to say in B&I, I worked out when I was first in B&I at Williamstown, I only had a $632 a month product in my first year. And it was actually a bit of a light bulb moment that I was like, oh shit, I'm sort of offering 2 good bottles of wine. Maybe I should just offer 1 good bottle of wine, and maybe I should offer a really good value bottle of wine that they can afford, right? Once I did that, that's what made a huge difference, right? So this sort of 282 to 429 a month, all of a sudden, even if they weren't getting it, at least they realized that they might be able to get it in the future, and or it made it easy for them to refer, right? Is they realized actually This is a lot less expensive than what digital agencies are quoting and all that sort of stuff, right? Because it is what it is. But anyway, the difference between these is $175, two posts a week, a report every 4 months. So we're not doing them too often, right? This is every second day we're posting, and we're reporting every second month. And with the small business, we're posting every day and we're reporting every month. That's the difference between the three levels. Um, and again, just all this stuff, I try and make it easy so that people understand, but there's not too many digital agencies that sort of have it, but we do put it all on our website as well, right? So that people understand, why would you do it? How much does it cost? That sort of stuff, right? So all this is a brochure version of my website, just so you're aware. And here we sort of explain what does the difference in terms of management cost, right? But yeah, hopefully that gives you a better overview of what we do. Yeah, I know it's often a bit to digest. Yeah.
No, that's all right. I've got a copy, so I'll just read
Yeah.
in my time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sweet.
it does.
Yeah. So you've got that. I don't need to be sharing this anymore. So, yeah. But
Yeah,
if you've got questions about it, but as I said, your mate Tom is actually a pretty good referrer, because he's actually given, if he's just done the can't think what it's called. Car Talk is, I think, what it's called. Car Talk is basically the website now. The capacity for him is to actually do the setup of the socials, do a planning session, and start posting, right? But I think the the hard part's going to be getting his understanding, because he's probably even further back than what you are. I don't think there's even a Facebook page for in terms of where he's at.
I couldn't tell you that.
Yeah,
To tell you the
but
truth,
the reality is, for your understanding, he's actually a pretty good review, because the website at least is already there and could be worked on. So so then what I would do with somebody like Tom is that, okay, we've created these channels. Hillary, can you revise this website, add all the links, add the feeds, that sort of stuff? And all of a sudden he's got a U-Butte operation potentially.
yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, but probably for you, it's just a matter of if and when it's timely to consider doing the setup in the first place, and then maybe talk to Hillary around, a revision. If Hillary, or depending on, often people have their web people, but yeah,
yeah,
depending on what you're looking at doing. But Hillary, I know, because Hillary's quite keen to be doing ones with me. The only problem is she's, a lot of the referrals and the ones I've had are that sort of, they're
yeah,
hard work. I mean, Tom could potentially be hard work, just because of trying to get him to understand what it is that we actually do and how we differ. You know what I mean? But all I
yeah,
do know is Hillary and I do go hand in hand, because
yeah,
she's just making sure that the website presence is as professional as it can be. And my strategy is about getting them not just to your front door, but getting them to the phone, the email, and your website. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
yeah, that's the reality. So.
So, and like you said, you do the reports every. So,
Depending on what plan people choose, yeah. So we're either doing it every 4 months, every 2 months, or every single month,
yeah.
depending on
So,
how
what do
often we're
you
posting.
judge that on? Not just because people go on the site. Are you judging it on how much is going through the gates, or?
It's yeah, and that's a good question. It's mainly for me, because I keep them very tradesman-like, right? Essentially, what I talk about is, and I go through all of the platforms, but primarily Facebook's the one people want to know about, because that's where we're often spending an ad dollar, right? So what we tell people is, okay, this is how many people saw your posts over the month.
Yeah,
This is how many people went through to your website that the pixel's telling us. And basically, that's the large part of the focus, right? So ultimately, for me, because I'm not responsible for the website, ultimately the sense is, for most business, if you're getting that much going through, and if the website's doing what it should be doing, even if the call to action is to call us, is that it should
yeah,
increase whatever the call to action is, right? But understanding that our call to actions on the social media posts include that as well. So we don't wait. We tell people to call Buckley's Auto, email, or visit the website. So all of our posts are saying that all the time.
yeah,
So So we don't wait for it, particularly on an advertised post, because that's another big mistake people often make. They'll say, oh, they boosted something, but then you look at what they tried to boost. It's like, it's poorly written and it doesn't tell people what they want them to do next, right? So you kind of need to have the call to actions on all the posts or the majority of the posts. The only ones we sometimes don't is when we're doing testimonial review type posts. But yeah, ultimately, the reports, it literally goes through the 5 different social media and tells you what's going on. So including how many people are searching you on Google, for instance. So we get Google Insights, not Google Analytics. Google Insights are different. So what's happening on the map? And we post to Google. I don't know if that's happening at the moment. I don't think it probably is. We post to Google. We clearly can see Instagram Insights because they're linked in with our Facebook Insights. We looked at LinkedIn, which would be, an effort to build for you in the first place, but it would be well worthwhile because of how people rate you, and a lot of professional people in the BNI rate you and the business. It's a lot easier to get people to follow your thing on LinkedIn as well. But anyway, and then Twitter's the other one, as I said. So we do look at all those insights, and we also tell you how to kind of improve. So there's an element of people, and as I said, particularly the ones that don't want anything to do with it. And, I would imagine that's probably where you're at, but we do still tell people how you can help us help you, if you know what I mean, by certain things that you can be doing, engaging with your own company posts and that sort of thing, so a bit like in BNI. And you do it. You're actually one of the more, I appreciate it. You do it even on my posts, right? So at times I see whether I'm sharing it and it's a BNI post or whether I've shared something on Dify. I see that you've often come in and I really appreciate that. You should be doing that for your own stuff as well, because it's softly. And that's what I'm often saying, in between liking what, me liking what I see from Goran or liking what I've seen from BNI Yarraville, I'm liking Buckley's Auto, and I'm liking, SLK Lawyers or whatever it might well be, you know what I mean? So, and it's a softly approach of pushing your own barrow rather than being, there's certain people you'll see that it just feels like they're just pushing their own barrow the whole time.
No, look, like I said, I don't mind, like even with James or you, or even I did Victor, Simon, Victor Gordon, although he's left and everything else, I still pumped him up a little bit.
Yeah. So the thing is, and I'm a bit unique, is that Stephen G. Hubbard isn't Fun Steve, right? I think we're connected on my other Steve as well. So I actually have a more private Facebook because of the line of work that I do. I then have a more business network as Stephen. Just so you know, that's why you might see the 2 people come up, right? So in my line of work, I learned. It took me a long time to actually realize that I probably needed to separate it. It's not something that I recommend for others, but for me,
yeah, I try to separate it too because some of my mates haven't grown up.
That's
you know what I mean, Steve.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff I've warned him not to ever send it to me again, otherwise I'll freaking block them.
Yeah. No, that's right. So, but the reality is that side of things, just the way your security settings are all set and all that sort of stuff, you can, and people don't often realize that you still need to have Goran on Facebook so that he can manage a public, he can manage a page and that sort of thing, right? So, so you need to be a person first, and that doesn't matter whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and even Google, right? You need to be, and YouTube. The only one that actually have shared access, well, actually Instagram and Twitter have shared access where you have a password, but all the rest, you actually have to be a real person in the first instance. Yeah. All right, mate. I'm looking at time, and we've done pretty well in the end.
Yeah, that's right.
Gone for a fair while.
But we'll have a chat another time anyway, Steve.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you sort of listening to me and going through that. Mate. So
sorry about the fucking around this morning. I just
all good.
Fucking throat's gone. I can't fucking talk.